Well, hello, and greetings from sunny Maui. Sorry, it's been a little bit since I put out any videos, but our family's quite busy, and the full-time job, of course, is not YouTubing. However, some things are really important to talk about. We're going to have to talk about some things that we need to be aware of in the world. Most of my free time, if I get much, is definitely spent with the family, especially with my wife. We love that we anchor our family and our biblical roots in our marriage and expressing what we think is appropriate biblically just in our marriage to our children. So we want our priorities to be lined up properly, and so we just don't put out tons of content, and that may change over time if my job changes or anything. But for now, let's discuss the most important thing going on in the world, which is World War III approaching? We need to discuss that. We'll discuss what happens if it's not, or if it backs up, if things change. And then a little bit of a touch on the third avenue, at least that our family is preparing for. So what about war? What if there's no war? And then what about the rapture? Is it still on the table? We'll discuss. So World War III, right? If you've not been paying much attention, this is one of the things that I definitely like to follow, just kind of watching prophecy unfold in front of us. One of the things that's the most, I guess, concerning is that of a third world war. I don't think anybody would really disagree that that war would be a nuclear war, global nuclear war. And are we actually inching towards it? Well, one thing I thought that was very peculiar when Russia-Ukraine broke out almost 4 years ago was, why was the media so quick to jump on Russia-Ukraine being the lead up to World War III? They were almost talking about it immediately, and that was pretty weird at the time because it was just a local conflict. But then here we go. Just month after month, year after year, things keep going in that direction. And they were largely regional for a long time until very recently. And this is one of the reasons that a lot of people thought the rapture may actually occur. And it was even during those high-level meetings in September at the UN when Trump had gone in and then came out with this Gaza peace plan that they've got, and everybody seems to be on board. And so that was another evidence that people were thinking, oh, are we going to get raptured? I certainly thought so, and we may still, who knows. But the other thing that came out of that, I think, or at least the timing was very peculiar, that it was right around then, was that Trump went from really being trying to be a peacemaker, kind of buddying with Putin and Zelensky, or combating either one, just to try to get them both to the table, and not really trying to pick too many sides. Although for a while he was against Zelensky and for Putin, and calling Zelensky a clown or whatever he was calling him, so a dictator. But then he came fully on board with everything that NATO was doing, everything that Ukraine was doing, arming Ukraine to the teeth, giving them their Tomahawk missiles, which are very damaging missiles that can reach Moscow. There's even talk about the frozen Russian assets, not just remaining frozen, a couple of $100 billion worth of stuff, but to actually use that to help fund Ukraine. So these are some pretty serious escalations. Then you have Russia also escalating and sending drones in over different parts of Europe, mostly in the Baltic regions and even the Nordic countries. And then you've got now America sent a fleet of B-52 bombers over to France and Spain, and so they're hanging out there. But then they were doing test runs, even with Finnish fighter jets, along the border of Russia. This is kind of either provoking or trying to make a point that they don't mess with us because this could continue to escalate. There's just a lot of escalation, it seems, going on everywhere. You've got China now threatening Japan because Japan was saying that if you do anything with Taiwan, then we're going to come in and defend them in the South Pacific. And so China was saying something about cutting off the head of the new Japanese prime minister. It just escalations, and they're even talking about military conflict. So, and then of course now we have the Venezuela thing. Like, these things are just kind of coming up out of nowhere, and seemingly for no reason. I kind of find it hard to believe that we're really going to go to war. Venezuela doesn't have much of an army, so it's not like it's a war. But over a country that's, I think it's like 7th on the narcotics supply list for what comes to the states. But all of a sudden, and there's dictators all over the world. So, but I don't know. All of a sudden, Maduro is like public enemy #1. We got to go down there and take him out. And we've got the USS Gerald Ford just showing up out of nowhere, which is basically the world's most extravagant and deadly U.S. aircraft carrier. And so why is all this stuff escalating? You even have India at war with Pakistan again, and Pakistan with Afghanistan. You have Thailand and Cambodia. You've got this stuff breaking out everywhere. But the biggest one is the World War III threat. Who has nukes and can really cause a problem? And that's NATO and Russia. So I think that's the biggest concern, is that we actually have almost every day some new escalation towards this global nuclear conflict. Now, I pray that it doesn't go to this, because no one wins. However, if you just read the book of Revelation, chapter 6 on, it's pretty clear that at some point during Revelation, a lot of what you're reading can be accounted for by global nuclear war. God brings many of his judgments through other people, just basically allowing them to be committing evil upon each other. And then he lists that as judgment from God. And that's happened all the time in the Old Testament. So yeah, he brings judgment. The first seal that he breaks is actually the revelation of who the Antichrist is. And right behind that, that's the white horse, and right behind that, the red horse, is war. And then within the same chapter, this is just chapter 6, the very beginning of the tribulation, you have all of a sudden 1/4 of the earth has died. So it seems like you have what pre-tribulational rapturists would say is a rapture event, the Antichrist revealed, and then war, famine, pestilence, death, Hades, and 1/4 of the earth, 2 billion roughly people, perishing. So the concern is, what if that's not part of the tribulation? And if it is, what if we're still here? What if believing Christians are actually still living on the earth during that time, or there's some escalation event that isn't described in the Bible and we're just here still? Well, we need to at least be prudent and understand that, we may have expected a rapture. I certainly expected one, a few months ago, and I still think it's on the table. But the point isn't about that. The point is more, what do we do to prepare? We do need to be aware. These headlines that I'm telling you, and we'll make sure to put those on the screen as we're talking. I'm sure they've been playing. But what we need to be aware of is that this escalation is real, and it's very concerning, because once you get to a certain point of desperation, then somebody somewhere is going to push that button. And I don't think it takes very long after someone has pushed the button to where most countries that are nuclear capable are doing the same. And that's, I think, why everybody's so concerned about that. I personally think that World War III is the one that's described in the book of Revelation, because I don't think that we would survive it. I don't think that you would get people to the point where they're desperate enough and they have nukes, but they don't use them. I think they would, and once you have a major actor using nuclear weapons, others are going to do so, and then we have this event that basically helps to describe what Jesus says in Revelation, which is, if he doesn't stop it at the end of 7 years, all flesh dies. So we need to be ready. So what are the things that we're doing? It's basic prepper stuff, but if you haven't thought about it, I'm putting this video out so that we can be thinking about these things actively. As a group of prophecy watchers, myself included, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that it doesn't have to happen when we think it would, or even at the timing that we think. That doesn't make us right. We need to be prudent and wise about the world. And when you're looking out at the world, it is concerning. It is going crazy. And so we need to be ready. Now, if it backs off, that's wonderful. But, so what we have done and what we continue to do is we build things for some basic essentials. Obviously, the first one is water. So make sure that you've got some either collected bottled water or some larger water reserves. But really, more importantly, is that do you have a water filter? You know, we got some straws from Amazon that you can just drink straight out of the river, and they filter everything. So you could use those if you had a water emergency. Water is going to be the most important thing for you. You need it. I would say prepare for a few weeks or even a month, or I hate to say 2 months because you can only do so much. That prepper road can get so deep that it's like, well, now you're living off grid, and you've got a bunker and you've got nuclear prep and you've got your own garden and farm. You can only do so much. Most people just can't do that, and I wouldn't have the know-how. So I think having 2 to 4 weeks of something is at least prudent, and access to water, food that's something. What we do is we've just over time stockpiled some tuna and protein bars and canned salmon and things that last, beef jerky, but we can also use in our day-to-day life so that we don't just buy tons of stuff and it just wastes. So we kind of keep a reserve of that, but we're also using it, and that was our thought going into how to do some basic prep stuff. And I'm sure there are some great prepper YouTubers that can tell you about all these different things. But I think what we need to do is elevate the thought that we need to be ready for some of these events. Let's see, energy is kind of another big one. A lot of people don't have a climate that is so favorable all the time, and so you would need to have an ability to run some fans or heaters or something. So getting a couple of battery backups or even some normal fuel backups, propane or gasoline. We are in Hawaii, so for me it made the most sense because I like solar energy anyway. So we got a few solar panels and some battery backups, and of course it's not a complete system, but it's something that really does help in case there's an energy crisis. We can run our water filter, and we can run some fans. We can keep a small fridge so that if we have dairy or meat or something like that that can stay fresh enough. Those are some of the things, and then I think one of the last things it would be, and this again goes down that prepper like wormhole. Like you got to be careful, because like how much of the world is collapsing in this scenario. It's like it's hard to say. Most of the time, it's not going to be this catastrophic, so it's not going to be a zombie apocalypse. And if so, that's probably the tribulation, and hopefully we would be out of here at that point. But if there's something along the way that's similar, it's probably smart to have a couple of $100 worth of just silver coins. I think that probably would become the default currency. Gold is great, but most of the time it's one little coin's right now like a couple of $4,000 or something. So that's unreasonable because you would need a Big Mac, and that's the only thing you've got to give somebody. So you need to, I think, just get a couple of $100 in silver coins and just have those available in case there's an emergency need to buy water from someone or buy food from someone, if that were the case. So, but that's just one prong or one fork or one road. We're in our family kind of preparing for 3 major avenues that this could go down, just to kind of keep it's to make sure we're covering all these bases. The second one is maybe the most likely. I hope it's the most likely. Well, I don't hope there's the third one, but that is things could actually just back off. I mean, at some point, someone may accept a peace deal, Ukraine, Russia, and then Russia, NATO start talking, and everything slows down instead of continuing to kind of just push closer and closer. You get to a point where all it takes is one errant bullet or a drone to hit the wrong place, or somebody has a false flag, like, oh, you blew up my hospital and it wasn't, I don't know. There's all these things. All it takes is a small trigger. So hopefully we can back away from that. And then at that point, I think our family is trying to do is make sure that we are still planning. Of course, we were in rapture mode for a little bit, but we were still planning. We went to work every day, and we were planning our future. We weren't guaranteeing it was going to happen. We just thought that it would, and it didn't. But it's the same thing. If you're a prepper, you got to kind of be careful also, because you can prep until to the nth degree and not really plan for, well, what if society just keeps going and it's fine? Like, did you save money in like the stock market? Like, were you doing like normal things that would actually be beneficial for your family? So when it comes to that, that's really how we live our every day. We don't talk prep, we don't talk rapture, although we do talk both of those things a fair amount. What we talk about the most is, where are we going to live long term? Are we going to be able to buy some piece of property sometime that we can build on? Are we going to lease for a little bit longer? Are we going to go check out Utah or some other place? We're always kind of wondering where the best place is for our family, but obviously this one's tough to beat. It's just expensive. In that, though, I think it's important to actually consider that God has a priority system by which I think we should be mindful. So when you're thinking about this second pathway of, well, what if everything comes down and it's life as normal? Well, that's a wonderful thing to consider also, because your faith in God and your desire to read Scripture and desire to talk about theology and theological issues with your children and with your spouse and with your family is actually the most important thing that you can do, because that establishes the foundation for everything that you do. Now, what's the best and most important expression of that on this planet is with your spouse. So your priorities really need to be in line, and that allows you to live such a wonderful life of peace and joy. And if you're not in a position where that's possible right now, that's okay. You can still think about how you would prepare yourself for that situation. If it's not the way that you want it now, start living that way and then see how things change. Because what God says, seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. That's Matthew 6:33, Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will guide your path. So if you're just seeking Him and trying to love, and in my case, and I think any married couple needs to be, you love your spouse as purely as you can, according to what God is trying to get you to do, that becomes your example. Your children all see it, the people around you see it, it becomes very obvious. And then of course you have roles. You have roles as a parent, you have roles as a child yourself, because you've got parents and you need to honor them, and you'll be prolonged in the days of your life. Fifth commandment. You're an employee or a business owner, so you've got roles there that you need to fulfill and do so lovingly for God, because everything that you do should be glorifying Him, and just try to do a good job. Whistle while you work, put joy in your heart. And then, yes, of course, we also try to live a life that is led with gratitude and joy. That is always the cure for us. If there's anything that ever comes up in the world's kind of difficult sometimes. It's always gratitude and joy, and that comes from 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in all things be grateful. This is the will of God for those who are in Christ Jesus. Those things are so important. So it would be, relax, enjoy your life, plan for your future, love your spouse, seek God, and fulfill your roles properly. That's where we go on that. For us, that's what most of our time is actually spent focused on. And then the third prong, the third avenue that it could go down is, what if the rapture is still on? What if World War III is coming, but it is in the tribulation, and before that happens, we get buzzed out of here? Well, that's wonderful. I mean, obviously, there's not much to prepare for that except to show some urgency, which is something that we've done in our lives. Talk to family, talk to friends, say, hey, you should be able to look around you and see that a lot is going on in the world. It's a crazy time. We've still got these comments in 3i Atlas and all the stuff that we've talked about with the wars, and there's always problems with Israel. So, could we be close? I still believe that we are. Now things could change and back off, and that is also fine. But if you're watching for prophecy to unfold, it seems to still be unfolding around us. pretty rapidly. So if that's the case, then will we be in that tribulation? Would we just be, raptured before that? I think the answer is yes. I will do a more in-depth study as to, what pre, mid, post, pre-wrath, all these different rapture timing. Is the rapture even a real event? Those things. But, after studying that quite obsessively for a number of years, to me, it's quite obvious that there is a rapture and that it is pre-tribulational. However, it may not be. So that's why we just go back to the other prep avenues, and that's fine. But just to read to you a few quick notes from Scripture that help me to think, God is not going to punish His bride for the sins of her life in the week leading up to the marriage. I certainly wouldn't do that with my lovely wife. I wouldn't say, well, but you had a life before you, before we were together, and you had sins in that life, so now I got to take out my wrath on you, and then we'll marry. No, who would even do that? So I believe that is what God is showing us. And let's go back. Even Abraham himself, the father of the Jews, and said this. This is Genesis 18. And then we'll go 17 to 18 and 22 through 25. The Lord, this is the angel of the Lord, so this is a Christophany or an appearance of Jesus pre-incarnation. The Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and in him all the nations of the earth will be blessed." Then the men turned away from there and went toward Sodom, while Abraham was still standing before the Lord. Abraham came near and said, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you indeed sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike? Far be it from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly?" That's some pretty stout words to say to God standing in front of you. But the point is, even Abraham would be shocked if the righteous, which is the believing Christians, would be judged with the wicked. But then we go to Jesus himself, Luke 21, 34 through 36. "But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life, and that day come upon you unexpectedly." Now, he had just finished talking about basically the tribulation. "For it will come as a snare on all those who dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch therefore and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man." So Jesus himself is saying, pray that you would be considered worthy. Of course, worthiness comes through belief and salvation. That's another way for him to just describe that righteousness and worthiness and enduring are all euphemisms for the same thing. It's just believe. Just believe and be saved. But so that you may be considered worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass. Well, he had just finished describing the end times, the tribulation. So, and to stand before the Son of Man, which harkens back to John 14, where he says he will bring us to him. So, those are just two of the things that I really do think about. I just don't think that it makes much sense that we wouldn't be taken out before God's wrath is poured out. And so there's questions about all that. We'll go through those things in a deeper video. But if that's not the case, we've got this first prong. I do think it's smart for everybody to be prepped for 2 to 4 weeks of outages of any kind. And I think those are some of the main areas you should hit. If you want to go more in depth, there's some great prepper YouTubers, I'm sure. I don't watch all those because I don't have time to watch everything. I'm kind of watching for prophecy signs. And if it's not a World War III and it backs off, make sure you're living your life properly according to Christ, according to the Bible, and have your priorities straight. People will see that. That is the major example you can show. And then, pray that you're considered worthy to escape all these things. You know, Israel's still 77. I think that's important, and we'll see what happens. But there's still a chance we get raptured out of here, and that would obviously be great. I'd love to see you all in the air. So, okay, we'll sign off for now, and we'll get another video out soon. Okay, God bless you all.